Hey everyone, welcome back to Mind Over Markets, where we explore the human side of trading, the thoughts, emotions, and mental habits that shape financial performance. I'm Emma, and today we're diving into a topic that hits close to home for so many traders: perfectionism.
Ah, yes, that old trap of wanting everything to be just right. I've seen that ruin more trading accounts and more peace of mind than bad strategies ever could.
Exactly. The idea that if I can just get the perfect setup, the perfect entry, the perfect risks to reward ratio, then somehow success will magically follow. But instead, that mindset often leads to paralysis and burnout.
That's right. What's interesting is that perfectionism masquerades as discipline. It feels like you're being responsible, careful, meticulous, rigorous, but in reality, it often blocks progress.
Let's unpack that, because perfectionism sounds noble. Who doesn't want to do things perfectly? But what we're really talking about here is the psychological pattern, a belief system that sets impossible standards and punishes you harshly when you don't meet them.
Yeah, psychologists Gordon Flett and Paul Hewitt define perfectionism as that, an impossible inner demand for flawlessness combined with relentless self-criticism. In trading, it's that inner voice that says, you can't make a mistake or you should have known better.
And that voice can be brutal. I've spoken with traders who can't even enjoy a profitable day because they keep thinking, I could have made more, or I exited too early.
Oh, I've been there. I remember my early trading days. I'd have a winning trade, but instead of celebrating, I'd feel frustrated that I didn't capture every last pip. That mindset is exhausting. It turns what should be growth into punishment.
Right. It's like chasing a horizon that keeps moving away the closer you get.
You know, Emma, one of the most dangerous myths is confusing perfectionism with discipline. They're not the same thing.
Yeah, let's talk about that. Because on the surface, they can look identical.
Exactly. A disciplined trader follows their plan, adapts when necessary, and learns from mistakes. A perfectionist, on the other hand, doesn't tolerate mistakes at all. They equate imperfection with failure.
And that's where it gets toxic. Jared Tendler calls it a hole in the trader's confidence. You think it's helping you, but it's actually draining your energy and preventing real progress.
That's such a great quote, because in the short term, perfectionism can even fuel success. You study hard, you over-prepare, and at first it works. But over time, that same obsession makes you rigid, afraid to pull the trigger or admit that markets are unpredictable.
So it's kind of like driving with both feet on the pedals. You're accelerating and braking at the same time.
Exactly, and eventually the engine burns out. Not because of lack of effort, but because of internal friction.
Now, here's another layer I found fascinating. The American Psychological Association did a long-term study showing that perfectionism has increased among young people since the late 1980s.
Yeah, and that aligns perfectly with the rise of social media. When you scroll through endless success stories, people showing their trading wins, their freedom lifestyles, their perfect charts, it creates a distorted sense of what normal success looks like.
And if 70 to 90% of trading success depends on mental state, as some studies suggest, then this growing pressure to be perfect becomes a serious risk factor.
It's huge. I've coached traders who weren't even aware they were perfectionists. They'd just say, I like to be precise or I'm detail-oriented. But beneath that was a deep fear of making mistakes, or worse, of being seen as incompetent.
That's such a key insight. Perfectionism isn't really about high standards. It's about fear. Fear of judgment, fear of failure, fear of not being enough.
Exactly. It's self-protection disguised as ambition.
So let's make this more tangible. How does perfectionism actually show up in daily trading?
Great question. It's surprisingly subtle. It might look like overanalyzing charts, hesitating to place a trade, or endlessly tweaking your strategy. You keep thinking, just one more filter, one more confirmation.
I've definitely seen that. Or closing trades too early because you're afraid to see a winning position turn into a loss.
Oh, yes, that's a classic. The perfectionist hates uncertainty, but the market is uncertainty. So every time they try to control it, they end up sabotaging themselves.
It's ironic, isn't it? The more they try to avoid losses, the more they end up losing. Not just money, but confidence.
Right. Daniel Martin put it perfectly. The obsession to eliminate every loss often leads traders to break their own rules. They overtrade, overthink, and overreact. And that spiral leads to emotional exhaustion.
Let's talk about that, the emotional side. Because perfectionism doesn't just affect results, it affects mental health.
Absolutely. Jared Tendler observed that perfectionist traders often live in a state of constant alert. Even after good results, they can't relax. They're thinking, I should have done better. That constant tension keeps their nervous system on high alert.
Which explains why so many traders experience anxiety or burnout, even when they're technically doing fine.
Exactly. You end up living in what if mode. What if I had entered earlier? What if I'd held longer? And that endless counterfactual thinking eats away at your peace.
And there's also that emotional whiplash. You feel euphoria after a win, then guilt because you didn't optimize it, then you feel anxious about the next trade. It's a roller coaster.
Right. Brett Steenberger says that for perfectionists, every mistake feels like proof of personal inadequacy. That's such a heavy burden to carry in a profession that's inherently probabilistic.
It's like trying to be perfect at coin flipping.
Exactly. You can have skill, preparation, and discipline, but you can't control randomness. Trying to do so only creates suffering.
I think what's especially heartbreaking is that many traders don't quit because of lack of skill. They quit because they're emotionally drained.
That's right. They burn out trying to meet impossible internal expectations, and ironically, they might have had the talent to succeed if they'd been kinder to themselves.
So, Daniel, from a psychological perspective, what's really going on here? Why does perfectionism have such a grip on people?
At its core, perfectionism is about control. Humans crave certainty, especially in unpredictable environments. For traders, markets represent chaos. So perfectionism becomes a defense mechanism. It's like saying, if I'm perfect, I can't be hurt.
That's powerful. It's almost like a psychological armor. But the problem is, the armor becomes the cage.
Exactly. It keeps you safe, but it also keeps you stuck.
Now, let's shift gears a bit. What do studies say about all this?
Well, a longitudinal study by Kern and Hell found that perfectionism has increased by more than 30% since 1989. That's massive. And it's driven largely by social comparison and performance pressure, both rampant in the trading world.
That makes sense. And Dee Wang's research in finance adds another layer. It shows that effort-based perfectionism, the kind that pushes you to work hard, might help early on. But when it turns self-critical, it starts to destroy performance.
That's a perfect way to put it. At first, it gives you energy, but over time, it drains your motivation. Like caffeine, helpful in small doses, harmful in excess.
And it's worth mentioning that perfectionism isn't just a trading issue. It's a mental health issue. Nabi Nazari's research links it to anxiety, insomnia, and even suicidal ideation. That's how deep it goes.
Yeah, the cost isn't just financial, it's emotional, psychological, and sometimes physical. The pressure to be perfect can literally make you sick.
So let's talk solutions, because I know a lot of listeners are thinking, okay, that's me, now what?
The good news is that perfectionism isn't a personality trait, it's a habit of thinking, and habits can be changed.
Love that. So where do we start?
First, redefine what perfect means. Jared Tendler suggests seeing perfection not as flawlessness, but as continuous improvement. The goal isn't to never lose, it's to keep learning.
That's beautiful. It turns perfection into progress.
Exactly. And then there's self-compassion. This one's huge. Treat yourself the way you treat a teammate. If a colleague makes a mistake, you don't attack them. You help them understand and move forward.
That's such a mindset shift, because self-compassion isn't weakness, it's the foundation of resilience.
Totally. And then there's journaling, what psychologists call cognitive journaling. Write down your negative thoughts and reframe them in more realistic terms. For example, change, I can't believe I made that stupid mistake to, I made a mistake, what can I learn from it?
I love that. It turns criticism into curiosity.
Exactly. And over time, you start internalizing a calmer, more balanced inner voice.
What about focusing on wins? I read that Brett Steenberger recommends reviewing your trades not just to find errors, but to notice what went right.
Yes, that's crucial. Most traders only do postmortems on their losses. But identifying your strengths reinforces confidence and prevents the nothing I do is good enough mindset.
It's almost like training your brain to see balance, not extremes.
Exactly. And then there's the lifestyle aspect, mindfulness, routines, reducing social media exposure. All of these reduce the pressure cooker environment that fuels perfectionism.
I think that's underrated. The impact of what we consume mentally. Constantly comparing yourself to others' highlight reels is a recipe for self-doubt.
Right. The healthiest traders I know have learned to trade their own plan, not the internet's version of success.
You said something earlier that really stuck with me, that trading with acceptance of imperfection is trading with freedom.
Yeah, that's Daniel Martin's line, and it's spot on. The moment you accept that losses are part of the game, the pressure drops. You start focusing on process, not perfection.
That's where consistency comes from. Not punishing yourself, but understanding yourself.
Exactly. Consistency isn't built on avoiding mistakes, it's built on learning from them.
So, if we had to leave our listeners with one takeaway, what would it be?
I'd say stop trying to be a perfect trader. Be a resilient one. The markets don't reward perfection, they reward adaptability.
I love that. And I'd add, your worth isn't defined by your last trade. Progress, not perfection.